Obi-Wan Kenobi's third lightsaber is among the most iconic sabers from throughout the vast tenure of the Star Wars galaxy. While it doesn't sport the same in-universe significance as some like the Skywalker saber, and the hilt isn't as uniquely designed as that of Count Dooku or Darth Maul, Obi-Wan's lightsaber remains a fan-favorite saber in its own right, specifically for the significance that its owner has as one of the most prolific and important Jedi Masters that have ever existed, but especially for the Jedi of his generation, as Kenobi was among the greatest. While Obi-Wan's lightsaber was presumed to be lost after Master Kenobi's death at the hands of Darth Vader, is there an actual explanation for what happened to the blade after the destruction of the first Death Star? And what are the whereabouts of Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber after the events of A New Hope? Well, stick with us today, acolytes of a galaxy far, far away, and let's answer that very question. What happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber? An important distinction to be made before we get started in the explanation, however, is that this explanation comes directly from Legends continuity. This is mainly due to the fact that currently there is not a canonical answer as of now, although it's theoretically possible that this might be an in-universe explanation as well, and that canon and Legends ultimately share the same fate of Kenobi's saber. Therefore, despite this being the definitive explanation in Legends, we will be treating it as a likely possibility in Star Wars canon. In Legends, Darth Vader recovered the blade and ultimately kept it for himself after he struck down his former master on the first Death Star. Vader was ensuring its safety upon the destruction of the Death Star, and though Vader would not use the weapon directly, he had it sent away to his fortress on Mustafar, where it would hang as one of the most prolific trophies in the Sith Lord's chambers. It is here where the lightsaber would reside for several years, as one of Vader's most prized possessions, and a symbol of one of his greatest triumphs in the darkness. While the Legends continuity explanation and the canon material differ in what exactly happened following the events of Return of the Jedi, there is nothing to dispute that this series of events up until this point in time is not canon. It's highly likely that if the saber survived the destruction of the Death Star in canon, which it likely did, this is where it would ultimately be found. From here on though, we will be covering the depiction of events from Legends material, and then based on this, we can speculate as to where the saber might be in canon or where it might have been at some point in time. We need to emphasize though just how important the saber ultimately was to Darth Vader, as it stood among his greatest trophies, as Darth Vader's greatest defeat was at the hands of Obi-Wan himself, and finally getting to strike him down on the first Death Star was one of the most significant triumphs of the Sith Lord's life. In Legends continuity though, this is where the saber would reside throughout the remainder of the original trilogy, until Luke Skywalker was eventually able to reconstruct the new Jedi Order and train Jedi Padawans of his own. At one point, two of his students by the names of Tion and Solazar and Ikarit were sent to the Bast Castle in search of ancient relics and artifacts from a foreign time. Here, they would come across a false Darksider by the name of Orlok, who had come across the legendary lightsaber of Obi-Wan Kenobi and had used it to threaten the two Padawans. It is believed that Orlok ultimately would pillage this from Darth Vader's castle following the destruction of the Empire and the Sith Lords, and that many Darksiders would venture to Vader's castle as a place of sanctuary, almost a holy grounds to many of them. After an ensuing battle, this Darksider would ultimately fall victim to the traps of the castle, which led him to narrowly escaping certain death. Though he was able to ultimately escape, he left the lightsaber of Obi-Wan behind for Luke's students to collect, with the students ultimately bringing it back to Luke for his authentication. While the lightsaber had been returned to relatively safe hands of Luke Skywalker, that didn't mean that it was immediately out of danger, as it would later be stolen by Uldor Locket, who sought to become a Jedi despite not being Force sensitive at all, as the lightsaber of Obi-Wan Kenobi held huge significance throughout Force wielders in the galaxy that followed Return of the Jedi. Almost as much significance as Vader's own lightsaber or the lightsabers of Darth Sidious, as it represented one of the greatest Jedi Masters that had ever lived, and one of the few remaining relics from an era where few relics remained. From here, Orlok and his students would join forces with Uldor Locket against Tion Solazar and Luke Skywalker's Jedi Padawans, and throughout the battle, the saber traded hands numerous times before eventually being recovered by Anakin Solo and returned to the new Jedi Academy. It was here where the lightsaber would remain in Luke Skywalker's possession for the remainder of his life. The ultimate fate of the lightsaber past this point though is unknown. However, it did ultimately end and reside in the hands of Luke Skywalker. So if this is Legends, what can we conclude about the canonical explanation? What happened to Obi-Wan Kenobi's lightsaber in canon? Based on this information, it is likely that the saber was kept by Vader, much like the Legends explanation, and it's highly likely that it was kept within his castle. Where the timelines diverge is after the events of Return of the Jedi, and it's possible that it wasn't actually Luke's students that recovered the blade, but there is a chance that Luke himself came across the legendary weapon within Vader's castle. The evidence for this comes from what we know about Luke's journey between the events of episode 6 and his resurgence in the second season of The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. We know that Luke spent much of his time traversing the galaxy in search of Jedi teachings as well as artifacts, and he was even able to come into possession of Yoda's lightsaber. We've theorized that Luke may have even traveled to Coruscant, where he may have found Yoda's lightsaber, which similarly was kept by the Emperor as a trophy. But for a full breakdown on this, we have a video coming in the next few days. If Luke's travels took him to Mustafar, the home of not only Darth Vader's castle, but also the climactic duel that resulted in the death of Anakin Skywalker, and Luke may have come across the blade of Obi-Wan Kenobi during his travels. We know that Vader's castle was home to multiple relics and artifacts from his era, as Kylo Ren was able to find the first Sith Wayfinder within the remains of Vader's castle, and it's likely that Luke was able to recover Kenobi's lightsaber while simultaneously overlooking the Wayfinder. The reason that Luke may have missed the Wayfinder while still coming across the lightsaber is in the mere nature of their possession. Kenobi's lightsaber was a trophy to be displayed, likely in plain sight to some degree, but we know that the second Wayfinder was hidden away in the clandestine compartment in that of the Emperor's throne room, being deliberately hidden away. From here, Luke likely would have kept the saber in close proximity to both that of Yoda and Leia, both of which who had fashioned their own lightsaber but ultimately abandoned the ways of the Jedi in order to aid the reconstruction of the New Republic. If Luke was able to save Leia's lightsaber from the dreadful night when Kylo Ren slaughtered his students, then it's plausible that he could have saved Obi-Wan's lightsaber as well, and it might have been away on Ahch-To around the time of the rise of Skywalker, being safely in Luke Skywalker's grasp yet again until his demise in episode 8. While we know that Rey did not leave Ahch-To in the rise of Skywalker with Kenobi's lightsaber in hand, it's theoretically possible that she will return to Luke's place of exile in search of resources and artifacts, much like Luke did himself, and did following his own ascension to Jedi Knight the first time around. As of now though, it's unclear where the blade could have gone after this, or what would have happened to it between Luke's recovery and its ultimate demise in episode 8. But as of right now, based on Legends continuity and what we know about this gap between episodes 6 and 7, this seems to be the likeliest answer as to what happened to Obi-Wan's lightsaber. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this explanation? Do you think Luke found Obi-Wan's lightsaber at some point? And if so, where do you think the saber is now? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching and your continued support on the channel. May the Force be with you, and I hope you have a great day.